I said, ooh, no wonder she didn't want to go to the after party. She knew Brian Higgins was going to be there, and she had been pursuing him.
And look at that, at 11:57, Higgy Bear makes a overt action towards Karen Reed. He says something, she reacts. You can even see her hands.
She's just a slutty girl that's a drunk and a slut and a whore and cheating on John or whatever.
I think you know what I mean.
And this is new. If you look closely, you can see Brian Higgins tickling the back of Brian Albert's neck with his fingertips. You can see right here, John O'Keefe is standing in the back. Karen Reed is bending over right next to Brian Higgins.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
My name is Brian Higgins, Higgins.
There he is, Brian Patrick Higgins, old Higgy Bear, testifying in the first trial. We have some new video evidence that contradicts our original hypothesis. Let's keep watching.
Who, if anyone else that you were familiar with, came into the Waterfall?
John O'Keefe and the defendant.
Clear when you're referencing the defendant, what is her name?
Karen Reed.
With regard to Mr. O'Keefe, how long had you known Mr. O'Keefe?
Maybe a year, a little over a year.
Or where it was that first met Mr. O'Keefe?
I believe it was actually the hillside.
How often would it be that you saw Mr. O'Keefe or socialized with Mr. O'Keefe?
I would see him at the hillside.
Would there be occasions typically where you would see Mr. O'Keefe without Miss Reed, or you would see Miss Reed without Mr. O'Keefe, or were they essentially together when you saw them?
I would say more often than not they'd be together.
How would you describe your relationship with John O'Keefe?
I considered him a friend.
How would you describe your relationship with Miss Reed?
I considered her a friend as well. I had John and I had exchanged telephone numbers.
And with reference to those communications, were they texts, were they phone calls, or varied?
Oh, they would be text.
The new FOIA production, thanks to Corey Hopkins, revealed a huge relationship between John O'Keefe and Higgy Bear. Starting way back in November, these two boys were texting each other, looking for poon, going to bars, showing each other their drinks. It was a real bromance, and all of it came to a sudden stop the morning after Brian Patrick Higgins made out with John O'Keefe's girlfriend at John's house. And that 14 days of silence is a critical piece of information, because we know during that time, not only is Higgy Bear ignoring John O'Keefe, he's sexting with his girlfriend heavily.
Do you recall sort of where you were situated in reference to the table when they came in?
The high top in the bar area, closest to the bar.
When John walked in to the Waterfall, were you already there?
Yes.
He greeted you, you indicated, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Karen walked in with him.
Yes.
But she did not greet you, did she?
I think they kind of went like that in different directions.
Right. Did she greet you?
No.
When John and Karen walked into the bar, Brian Higgins was not expecting them.
Right. So she walked over toward the corner of the bar, and John came over and greeted you, and then walked over and joined her, correct?
Yes.
Where did they go when they first came in?
They may have initially went in, veered off in different directions. I recall that she opened her coat and took a drink out of it.
Listen to that guilt-ridden response. The question was, where did they go? And Higgy Bear not only told us that, but then he offered the fact that Karen Reed brought a drink from another bar inside of her coat. That's a huge indicator of deception, and also evidence the fact that he was not prepared at all in order to testify properly.
I should say a glass.
At some point over the course of the time that you were at the Waterfall and they were there as well, did you have occasion to have a conversation with Mr. O'Keefe?
I did. I don't know that if it was initially when he first came in, but I did have a brief conversation with him as to the content. I don't recall what that was.
Is small talk fair to say?
Greetings.
Based upon the new video, Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, and John O'Keefe talked at the Waterfall for over 23 minutes. That's huge. That's a majority of the time. But something happens that we are about to see that may have triggered either John or Higgy Bear to eventually attack each other at 34 Fairview. Let's keep watching. At 11:07, Brian Patrick Higgins is showing both John O'Keefe and Brian Albert something on his phone, but I don't think it's nefarious at all.
With regard to Miss Reed, during your time at the Waterfall, what, if any, conversation did you have with her?
I did not have any.
And at some point over the course of the evening while you were at the Waterfall, did you send a text to Miss Reed?
I did.
Do you recall what the substance of that text was?
I think it was something like, well.
Well?
At 11:32, Brian Patrick Higgins, old Higgy Bear, sent that text message to Karen Reed, who was standing right near him.
Why you had sent that?
To be honest with you, it was, I guess you could view it as a flirty text.
Karen didn't stop what she was doing when she was over in the corner of the bar and come over and say hi to you.
I didn't have any interaction with her that night, no.
So safe to say that throughout that evening, once she was sidled up next to John O'Keefe or friends that she was with, she never turned back around and came over and even acknowledged you, correct?
That's correct.
So she basically ignored you the entire evening.
That's not how I interpret it, no.
I didn't ask you how you interpreted it. I asked you what she did. Did she ignore you or did she pay attention to you?
Objection.
You can go ahead and answer that. Did she ignore you?
No.
So she paid attention to you. Came over and said hello, shook your hand, gave you a hug.
Well, just because somebody didn't come over doesn't mean they ignored you.
Did she do those three things?
Hug? What was the other
Did she
thing?
say hello, shake your hand, give you a hug?
No, she did not.
No, she didn't do any of those things, did she?
No.
It was like you didn't even exist.
I think that's dramatic. No, I don't look at it that way.
Did she ignore you or not?
No, she did not ignore me.
So what did she do to not ignore you?
She was
What her interaction with you?
Can I answer now?
Sure.
In my opinion, she was working the room, talking to people, saying hello, catching up.
Right. The one person she didn't come over to talk to and say hello to and catch up with is you.
Well, I don't know that I was the only person, but I was one of the people that she didn't say hello to, yes.
Treated you sort of like a stranger.
I don't feel that way, no.
She actually positioned herself away from you at the other end of the table on the opposite side in the corner. Isn't that right?
I don't know where she was all night, no.
We now know that Karen Reed was not only positioning herself away from Brian Higgins, she eventually makes her way all the way to Brian Higgins and then reaches out and flirtatiously grabs his arm. The two interact not once but twice. So I'm not sure why Alan and the rest of his team is questioning Brian Higgins about the well text and the lack of communication, because the video clearly evidences that their client was literally communicating, flirting, and talking with Brian Higgins. You can see right here, John O'Keefe is standing in the back. Karen Reed is bending over right next to Brian Higgins. And there it is, conclusive proof that not only did Karen Reed not ignore Brian Higgins, she overtly reached her arm out and pushed him back in a flirtatious manner. And you can see her face. She's smiling. Those two were not ignoring each other. We have conclusive proof that they were clearly interacting. And there it is again. And the question now is, did John O'Keefe see this flirtatious interaction and was he bothered by it?
Did that
I don't know.
upset you that she ignored you or didn't pay attention to you?
I did not feel ignored and didn't upset me at all.
But it bothered you enough to send her a text, didn't it?
No, it was a flirtatious text. It was just, that was it.
It bothered you enough to send her a text that said, with 6 M's behind it.
Okay.
And, well,
Well, it wasn't like that. It was, well, that's it.
just, well, like a well in the ground.
I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think you do too, sir. You meant, well?
Well.
When are you gonna pay attention to me?
No, that's not correct.
Well? Why are you ignoring me?
It's not correct.
Well? Am I chopped liver?
Objection.
All right, that's sustained. Mr. Jackson, let's move on.
When you texted her, well, at Waterfall, she ignored that text too, correct?
Well, that was the only text I sent that night to her, yes.
Okay.
She didn't respond.
That wasn't my question.
My
My question is she ignored the text.
Well, I don't know if I don't know what her mindset was. If she purposely ignored the text or she didn't see it, I don't know. I didn't read into it.
Did she ignore the text, Mr. Higgins?
I don't know.
Did she respond to the text?
She did not respond.
Got it.
Alan's smug body language there is on purpose. He wants the jury to know that he thinks Brian Higgins is full of shit. However, we know now that Brian Higgins was telling the truth. Had Lally and the rest of the prosecution actually watched the entire video, they could easily contradict this entire line of questioning by showing Karen Reed, his client, literally reaching out and grabbing Brian Higgins' arm. And then we even have more video showing the two interacting. the 11:32 well text, for which I thought was such a big deal.
Well?
Alan, in the war room, they all thought it was such a big deal, is easily contradicted by the fact that after 11:32, Karen Reed is literally flirting and touching Brian Higgins' arm. Logically, they could say the text worked if she actually read it, but for certain, based upon the evidence that we have here on video, Karen Reed was not ignoring Brian Higgins, nor was she all the way on the other side of the table, as Alan was implying.
He texts Karen surreptitiously with John.
Well? Like,
dot,
you're
dot,
not
dot.
even gonna say hi to me?
Like, he's got a motive to not like John.
This is inside the war room before Brian Higgins testified, and the entire team there, as you can see, was focusing on this well and potentially triggering Brian Higgins to be enraged by being ignored by Karen Reed. Had they actually seen this video, they would have known that their client was literally flirting with Brian Higgins, touching him, talking to him, and you wouldn't have gone down this line of questioning. I'm not sure if it's because Karen Reed failed to disclose fully what was going on with Brian Higgins, or if they simply just missed this on the video. We previously had this video of Brian Higgins and Brian Albert making out at the Waterfall. We do get some additional video that is going to be helpful, but if you look right here, you see John O'Keefe staring right at these two men making out. That's a huge signal to John by Higgy Bear that he has friends, he has other male apes around him that he associates with that potentially will protect him. This is very critical information. And this is new. If you look closely, you can see Brian Higgins tickling the back of Brian Albert's neck with his fingertips. And look at that, at 11:57, Higgy Bear makes a overt action towards Karen Reed. He says something, she reacts. You can even see her hands. These two are clearly conversing. They're clearly interacting. Any testimony to the fact that they were not communicating is simply not true. Let's watch it again. Karen Reed is right here. Brian Higgins is looking right at her. He definitely says something, and in response, she actually looks at him and reaches out her arm. This is a second distinct material interaction between the two.
Who, if anyone, was leaving the bar around the same time?
I mean, I think pretty much everybody was wrapping up and leaving. I know that I beat Brian and Nicole back to the house.
Now, you drove from the Waterfall to Fairview Road. About how long a drive was that?
Probably a few minutes, but the weather was, I remember when I came out, I put the wipers on, there was some snow on the ground, but it was the type of snow where the roadway was still black at the time.
Keep in mind, the question is how long, and for some reason, Higgy Bear not only answers the time, he wants to tell you about the road conditions. These are all huge indicators of deception and evidence that he was poorly prepared to testify.
But because it was being driven on, but the sidewalk had a light coating.
Did you leave before they did, John and Karen, or did they leave before you did?
I don't know.
You said you were the first one back to Brian Albert's house, correct?
Yes.
Safe to say you were one of the first ones to leave.
I was the first one to leave
Waterfall.
the Waterfall, probably.
I mean, if everybody's hurting out and you're the first one to get there, you're probably among the first to leave, correct?
Most likely.
Higgy Bear was hesitating with that question because he knows that he wants to be one of the first people to leave 34 Fairview after attacking John O'Keefe. He's conflating the two responses.
You didn't say goodbye or walk over and give John a big hug or anything like that? An acknowledgement, did you?
No.
You just left?
Well, that's what everybody was doing, just leaving.
Okay. You too?
I did leave, yes.
At that point, all you knew was that you were going over to 34 Fairview. You did not know who else was invited over to 34 Fairview.
My impression was that it was an open invitation, and I planned on heading over there.
But you did not know who else was coming?
I had no idea who was coming.
What, if any, discussion is there around the table as far as next steps or where to go from?
Well, there was talk at the table, I think initially about going back to Chris Albert's pizza shop to have some food and drink. And at some point that transitioned into going back to Brian Albert's house.
And you didn't say goodbye to John correct?
I don't think I said goodbye to anybody.
And you didn't talk to him about coming over to 34 Fairview?
No.
And here is that exit. Just seconds after interacting with Karen Reed, we look to Higgy Bear to see what the hell triggered him, if anything. We see that John O'Keefe is still in the background there. Karen's right here talking to Jen McCabe. Higgins looks back at Karen Reed one last time. He doesn't say goodbye to John, and that's critical because those two were talking for months and months, and now he just leaves the bar without saying anything. Something's very odd about that. There's the arm grab by Chris Albert. When Brian Higgins is waving his arm and pointing to his head, he very well could be talking to Karen Reed, because you can see that Jen McCabe actually says, "Are you talking to me?" Brian Albert must be animated here. I have no idea why he's pointing to his head. We're going to figure it out, but it very well could be that he was not taunting John initially. He was actually communicating directly with Karen Reed. He wouldn't be communicating with Jen McCabe. He has no idea who Jen McCabe really is. Ooh, I see what a potential could be. It looks like Brian Higgins was not taunting John O'Keefe, but potentially waving Karen Reed to come outside. You see that John O'Keefe turns around, and that's when John gets animated. John definitely says something to Brian Patrick Higgins, old Higgy Bear, but we're not sure exactly what was said, but something was going on during this exit.
Yet at 2:20 in the morning, you texted John O'Keefe, "You coming here," correct?
At 2:20?
Sorry, 12:20.
I did.
And that had 3 question marks behind it, correct?
Yes. Yes, I said, "Are you coming here?" followed by 3 question marks.
Did you text Karen about coming over to 34 Fairview?
No.
So at 12:20 a.m., after you left the Waterfall and made your way over to 34 Fairview, you were more interested in getting John to come to 34 Fairview than you were to getting Karen to come to 34 Fairview.
No, that's not how I would describe that.
But you didn't text Karen, correct?
No, I didn't.
But you did text John.
Yes.
And based upon the new evidence that we have, the fact that Brian Higgins was texting John O'Keefe for all those months, every day, talking about girls, meeting lesbians, converting them, drinking, showing each other the pictures of their drinks. This is very suspect, because after he makes out with Karen, he stops talking to John completely. He then starts really texting with Karen up until the point of the Waterfall. The only text he sends John is at 12:20 and 48 seconds on that morning, "You come in here," followed by 3 question marks. That is very suspect. We know that he told the officers that he heard Hen McCabe speaking with John, giving him directions to 34 Fairview. But now, based upon what we see, things have changed a little bit. The ultimate hypothesis that Brian Higgins attacked John O'Keefe is obviously very plausible. It's just not clear what started that initial altercation. But no matter what, we will never, ever stop producing these videos until the real killer,
Brian Higgins,
is brought to justice.
the defendant, kissed me.
How did she kiss you?
Not like a friend.
Lip to lip, is that fair to say?
Yes.
And what was your reaction to that?
I was taken back.